Father, I thank you so much for today. Lord, I pray that you would just open our eyes to the promises of your return, that Yeshua, you're coming for us, and your return is near. So Lord, help us to have eyes to see. Show us things that we haven't known before concerning your word, your prophetic word, in the name of Yeshua. Amen. All right, so about 2 weeks ago, I was trying to go to bed, and I couldn't sleep, and the Lord just basically threw this whole comet Elenin in my head. I didn't really even know too much about it, but I couldn't sleep at all that night, and I stayed up, and I read, and I studied, and that was the night I put out that prophecy blog that you saw on 7 Theory. So from there, I basically, you can ask my wife, she'll tell you that I pretty much have just been in Elenin world for like 2 weeks. So this is probably, I'm going to say, probably the most significant, most important prophetic teachings I've ever done. And so I think by the time you see all of what's entailed in this, you may feel the same way. So we got to cut through a lot of what is false information on the internet. So who here's heard of Comet Elenin? Has everyone heard of that? It's like the most buzzed comet that's ever existed on Google and all that. It's just getting crazy hits. And Nibiru, have you guys heard that? Okay, cool. And then the Day of the Lord. You guys heard that? Okay, cool. So Comet Elenin, Nibiru, Planet X, and the Day of the Lord. That's what this message is titled. And just a little bit of facts about Comet Elenin, so we're on the same page. It was allegedly found by a amateur astronomer out of Russia, but he was using a remote facility here in New Mexico. And so that was found on December 10th, 2010. So if you look up Comet Elenin on Wikipedia, that's what you'll find. That his name is Leonid Elenin, and it was founded on December 10th of 2010. So that's what you'll find on Wikipedia, and what I want to do is kind of dab at that a little bit and go, okay, do we believe just everything that's there just because it's in Wikipedia, or is there more to it? And if you look at the cosmic name, if you're into astronomy programs, the cosmic name is C/2010 space X1. So I had no idea what that meant about 2 weeks ago. So I've been on quite the learning curve. So now if you also go on Wikipedia, you'll see that the nucleus of this comet is about 3 to 4 kilometers wide, is what they're saying. And as of August 2011, the coma, or the gas and the dirt, that width, it's just been growing, and now it's up to about 200,000 kilometers, is what they're saying the coma of the comet Elenin is. And let's see. Then you have the other side of the camp. Some people, so you got the story that this is just a comet, and NASA says that it's rather wimpy, that it's really not really worth even paying attention to, essentially. And then you have the other side of the camp, and you have people on YouTube and on Google and blogs, and they're saying, hey, this is a brown dwarf star. This isn't wimpy, this is catastrophic. This is totally different from anything we've ever seen before. So where do you start with that? Is this thing just a comet, or is it a brown dwarf star? Is this wimpy, or is it really something that is once in a lifetime? So that's what I started digging through a couple weeks ago, and we're going to kind of pry into some of the things that I found along the way. So here's Wikipedia, and here's, like I said, you're going to see the Russian astronomer who found it. He's an amateur, and that, it's exactly what I said. It has the nucleus is 3 to 4 kilometers wide, and yada yada yada. All right. This is the astronomer Leonid Elenin, who allegedly found this, and that's under great debate too. If you study it under Google, that's like, well, did he? Is he a real person? Who is this guy? We're going to open our Bibles to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and this is definitely a passage that the Lord wanted us to know, especially in the day that we live in, because this talks about the day of the Lord that's approaching. And there's two types of people. There's people who are totally awake and paying attention and understanding the hours that we live in, and then there's a people who have no clue, and they're living carelessly, and all of a sudden the day of the Lord comes upon them like a thief. But those who were watching, they knew when the season that the day of the Lord was coming. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, starting in verse 1, Paul writes, "Now to the times and the epochs, brethren, you have no need of anything to be written to you, for you yourselves know full well that the day of the Lord will come just like a thief in the night. While they are saying peace and safety, then sudden destruction will come upon them like labor pains upon a woman with child, and they will not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, that this day would overtake you like a thief. For you are all sons of light and sons of day. We are not of night nor of darkness. So then let us not sleep as others do, but let us be alert and sober. For those who sleep they're sleeping at night, and those who get drunk at night. But since we are of the day, let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet the hope of salvation. For as God has not destined us to wrath, but for obtaining salvation through the Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we will live together with him. Therefore encourage one another and build up one another, just as you also are doing." So last time we met, we talked about the armor of God, and I think it's going to be extremely important for everyone right now to be thinking about the helmet of salvation, about final salvation. Jesus promised he's coming for us. We sung about that. He said he's preparing a place for us right now. It's extremely important that you have that on your head right now, because some of the stuff we're going to look at can be scary. But look at me. I'm not freaking out, okay? Why? Because I have a helmet of salvation. I know Jesus is coming. Okay, so if you start to get scared, relax. Okay? Jesus is coming. Helmet of salvation. We're good. All right? So this passage in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, it compares these two people. It compares the person who's living carelessly, who's not really paying attention, and the world is saying peace and safety. Okay? So this is the time period where the world is really saying peace and safety, everything's cool. The economy's getting better. That's what they'll say. There's no problem with Israel. That's not a big deal. We're going to just divide the land, and the Jews and the Palestinians, they'll live side by side. It's going to be great. Lots of peace. Don't buy it, okay? Because we have an enemy that wants you to believe that tomorrow will be the same as today, and the day after that will be the same after that. But that's a complete lie. If you read the Word of God, it tells us that where we're headed is totally unlike any other time period that's ever existed. There's never been a worse time in the past than what's coming, and there never will be as bad a time in the future of what's coming. So we need to have that frame, that reference of mind, so that we're not deceived, because the enemy wants you to believe that everything is fine and tomorrow's going to be the same as today. Your 401k, it's going to be there. Trust me, Satan says. Your house, it's going to be there. Trust me. Okay? So start thinking that way, as the enemy is trying to get you to think that everything's fine and everything will be the same tomorrow. All right. Now, okay, the controversy. You're going to see two big camps. Some people are saying, yeah, this is the guy. This is the astronomer. This is Leonard Elenin. He found the comet, and case closed. It's done. You have a whole other camp who says, actually, he's a fictitious person. He's like a plant by one of those lettered agencies, right? And he's not real. He's a figment, because what really Leonard Elenin stands for is a meteor shower that comes out of the constellation of Leo. Okay, Leonid is actually Leo with a meteor shower, and then Elenin actually stands for extinction level event. Nibiru is near. You go, whoa, what is that? I'd like to believe this guy's a real guy and say everything's fine, right? That doesn't sound good. Extinction level, whatever. So we need to really investigate. Okay, what is the truth behind all this, and what can we know? So moving forward. There was a video that came out of Leonard Elenin, and he was in Russia, and it's not in English, so if you look it up on YouTube, you're not going to understand anything he says. But you can see him, and there's there's been researchers that says there's no way that's the same guy. This guy's not cross-eyed. This guy is on the video, and he's not looking straight. And so there's definitely a debate on whether this is truly Leonard Elenin, the discoverer of the comet. Just so you know, this is all stuff I found within the last 2 weeks. And some of this might be boring, but I'm telling you, this is going to lead to somewhere really cool. So we're going to have a series of videos. Before we start this video, I want you to understand something. There was an operation called, what happened there? Okay, there was something called Operation Paperclip. Has anyone ever heard of that? Okay, Operation Paperclip happened after Nazi Germany. So as Nazi Germany was coming under trial, and they were going to put all of those evil people on trial, the U.S. government goes, wait a second, they have technology on rockets and stuff that we really want. So what we did as a country is we went in and we took the top 1,500 rocket guys, for lack of a better term, okay? All the engineers that made those fabulous rockets, we brought those into America, okay? And we're going to see where they ended up.
The first to arrive at this place was an 18-year-old American GI by the name of Hugh Carey, who later became governor in New York State. And he said when they arrived, what they discovered lying at their feet was thousands and thousands and thousands of dead bodies. And come to find out, 25,000 of the 40,000 slaves at this place perished at the hands of the Nazis. Well, you know, immediately after the war, the U.S. and the Allies created the Nuremberg trials, at which time we brought the Nazis to justice for their crimes against humanity. But 1,500 of the top Nazis never went to trial. They were smuggled into the United States by the U.S. military under a program called Operation Paperclip, smuggled in through Boston and West Palm Beach, Florida. And Wernher von Braun and his rocket team, 100 of them, along with 100 copies of the V-2 rocket, were sent to Huntsville, Alabama, where von Braun became the first director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. What's interesting is the other 1,400 Nazis. Who were they? Well, some of them were brought to the United States to work for the CIA. Others were brought to the United States to do the LSD drug experiments and the MK Ultra mind experiments during the 1960s, where people were jumping out of windows. Some of the Nazi scientists that in Germany had been taking Jews and putting them in freezing temperatures to see how the body would react to that were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. They were put in charge of the U.S. military flight medicine program. And so when you take 1,500 of the top Nazi scientists and essentially seed the military-industrial complex, the question I have is, do they bring with them an ideological contamination?
All right, so if you didn't know that, that's some history that you won't read in textbooks, but that American history is actually littered with things that you go, what? In America? Yeah, in America, okay? And the reason I bring this up is because we're going to be talking a lot about the organization NASA tonight. So in order for us to have a really good idea about how to weigh in information, we need to have some background knowledge. So that's why I brought that out. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm not trying to bash America or anything like that. I just want you guys to understand some things. Okay. There are some things that have occurred in the last several months that are very suspicious, that don't make sense. And so I just want to list some of those things that you go, wait a second, why would they do that? Why did that happen? And so one of the things that has occurred is there is a awesome telescope in space called the WISE telescope. And this actually was taken down offline. And there was no reason why. They didn't actually say, okay, we're taking it down because it's broken or anything like that. No, they just took it down. And this has the ability to see space in an infrared mode, which is really important when you start looking for asteroids and comets that might be on a trajectory that would affect the Earth. So when they took this down, that's very suspicious because this is like the best of what we have. Why did they take it down when we really need to be watching and watching for some objects? I mean, it was only up for like, I think it went up on in 2009, and it found more comets and more things than any of the other telescopes prior to it. It's leaps and bounds ahead of anything else we had, and they pulled it offline. Okay. Some of the things that I'm going to show you tonight, just so you know, if I had the ability to use my laptop up here and go live, there wouldn't be videos, but because I don't have that ability, I just made videos. Does that make sense? So, okay.
They've given me a few minutes just to talk to all of you in our NASA family about emergency preparedness. NASA recently participated in a FEMA exercise called Eagle Horizon that was a part of a continuity of operations and government exercise that we do annually. And I became aware of some things that concern me about our family preparedness, and I wanted to talk to you very briefly. You know, we in NASA, we're an incredibly unique organization. We're the only agency in the federal government that's responsible for the safety and well-being of people not only here on Earth, but off this planet. So my experience in the astronaut office, my experience as an active duty Marine, always talked about the importance of family preparedness and to make sure that we had a viable family support program. And I have concerns that ours right now is not as good as it ought to be. So what I'm asking all of you in the NASA family, whether you're out on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, along the Gulf Coast, up on the Great Lakes, think about the natural disasters that could occur in your area. Think about attacks that could come like 9/11 from outside forces, and talk to your family about your work and what they need to do to prepare for the unforeseen. Develop a family preparedness plan in your house. Have an emergency supply kit available. Most people who live along the Gulf Coast always have an emergency kit for hurricanes. I'm not sure whether people out on the West Coast think about earthquakes and the like, but have an emergency supply kit at your home. Think about a family communications plan. Where are we going to meet if an emergency occurs and we're all over town? What are we going to do? Are we going to call each other on the cell phone? Just think about those things. If you have pets, think about a pet preparedness plan. How are you going to make sure that they're taken care of when you're spread all over the place? And then if you have family members who have special needs preparedness. The most important asset for us to successfully complete our mission is that our people, our families mainly, are taken care of so that we can come to work and feel good that if an emergency arises, our families are going to be taken care of. So I would ask you again, sit with your families, think about what you would do in an emergency situation. I hope that you'll embrace and support the Family Preparedness Program as we all get better prepared to deal with these emergencies. Know your stuff. You know what it is that you're going to do, know what it is that you want your family to do if an emergency arises. But most of all, be prepared.
All right, cool. So that's NASA warning their employees. And then this letter came out on October 15th of 2010. And so this is just before they took WISE telescope offline. This is a White House letter, and it's a 10-page document. You can actually find it on Scribe if you're interested. But it talks about near-Earth objects, NEOs. And it has a whole description of the urgency of near-Earth objects, and you can look at it. And this was a big deal. This is, when you look at blogs, you go, oh, okay, this letter was a big deal. So if you do more research, you'll find that that is, in fact, something of concern. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about solar storms or solar flares. If you do research, most of the solar flares that are coming off the sun right now, they're coming away from the Earth. They're going out into space, which is good for us. The question is why? What's causing the sun to have some sort of electric energy that takes that energy from the sun away from us? What is going on? So think about that. Start processing, okay, why would the sun be acting differently than it ever has before? All right, so here's where I said, okay, if we had a computer, I would just do this up here, but I actually record this. Thank you, Jay, for all your help, by the way. All right, as we search further into trying to discover exactly what's going on with Comet Elenin, if you go onto a Google search engine and you just type in Elenin space site space NASA.gov and hit enter, the very top window that appears click on that. It's got this 11133. And when you open that, we're still on nasa.gov up here. You can see we're at nasa.gov. And so this is got a number of 11133. And it has to do with Comet Elenin. It's got the alleged astronomer that found Comet Elenin from Russia. And so what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this number, 11133. I'm going to go back to Google, and I'm going to replace the word Elenin now with that number. And now hit enter. And the very top site that comes up now, I want you to click on that. And then you have a box like this that shows up. Now, before you start all this, I want to make sure that you know to have Google Earth open. So under this open with, hit the browse button, and we're going to open with Google Earth, and we're going to see what happens. It's very strange. So check it out. You see this huge red X appear right off the coast of Kamchatka in the Pacific Ocean. So to give you a little bit more reference, here's the Pacific Ocean. Here's Kamchatka. If you go down here, here's Japan. But for some reason, this red X in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Kamchatka is tied to Comet Elenin right off of nasa.gov's website. And for some reason, when you enter that into Google Earth, it puts you right off the coast of Kamchatka. It's very strange. So we don't know why, but this is just trying to figure out the truth behind what's going on right now. Is that interesting? Am I like the only one that goes, what? Okay, so here is, who's heard of ready.gov? You guys seen the commercials? Okay, so they're all, the government says, okay, be prepared for a disaster, be prepared. But then you look at this commercial they put out and you go, how do I prepare for that? All right, so check out this commercial.
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.
Okay, so basically we're seeing a scenario where they lost gravity. Not sure why that had ever happened, except for once I researched, I go, oh, really? Okay, so I don't know. I'm just starting to see a picture and I'm going, are you guys being straight? Are you guys telling us everything that we need to know? So here's another deal that is quite interesting. Has anyone not heard about the alignments with Comet Elenin and the dates of the earthquakes that have happened? Have you guys heard about that, or do you? Yeah, have you heard about all this? So I'm going to run you through this whole thing, and like I said, I would have done this live if we had the ability to do that, so I just made a video. So, okay, so as you research Elenin, one of the things you'll find on some YouTube videos, you'll see some people pulling up a diagram, an orbit diagram where they can actually move Elenin themselves. So I want to show you how to pull that up. So if you pull up Google and type in Elenin, orbit diagram, NASA. Once you have that in your search window, then scroll down and you're going to see there's a couple videos, and underneath those videos you're going to see Elenin's cosmic name C/2010 space X1 Elenin. Click on that and you're going to go to a nasa.gov website, and here you're going to want to make sure that your JavaScript is enabled, and then click on this Show Orbit Diagram. And when you click on that, you're going to see what everyone is pulling up on YouTube. And there it is. So this is the orbit diagram. You can actually hit these little buttons here and it'll move the whole comet Elenin and the orbits around. So I have 4 of these pages open. I'm going to go to a date that I already have priorly selected. And this date I have is February 27th, 2010. So the reason we're looking at this date is if you looked back on that date, you would find that that was when Chile had an 8.8 earthquake. And so what is interesting and what people have pointed out on YouTube is Comet Elenin is aligning with the Earth and the Sun. So on that date, so February 27th, 2010, Comet Elenin, the Earth and the Sun are all in a straight line. And that is when Chile had that 8.8 earthquake, and it tilted the axis of the Earth. So it was a major event. And this was when Elenin was 6.041 AU away from the Earth. I had to look up what an AU is, and that's actually an astronomical unit. It is basically the average distance from the Earth to the Sun, and it's about 92 million miles. So 1 AU would be 92 million miles. This is 6.041 AU away from the Earth. So we're going to say 92 million times 6. So it's pretty far away. All right, so the next date to look at then is September 4th. So if you recall, this is the exact date that Christchurch, New Zealand had a 7.2 earthquake. And what you find here is also another alignment. So you see Comet Elenin out here. You see now the Sun is in between the Earth. But the Earth, the Sun, and Comet Elenin, I'll zoom a little bit so you can see the Sun and the Earth. They're in a straight line. And once again, you had an earthquake. This time the distance is 6.257 AU from Comet Elenin to Earth. All right, so the third date we'll look at then is now Earth has swung back around the Sun on March 11th, 2011, and is in between, directly in between Elenin and the Sun. And what you had here is the Japan earthquake, the 9.0 earthquake that hit Japan, and this AU is now only 2.153 from Elenin to Earth. So significantly closer, and really important to note is that Earth is now in between Elenin and the Sun on this date. So I think that has to play a major role in why it was so intense. And doing further research, I found that Elenin is actually comprised of hydrogen cyanide. And so hydrogen cyanide has a couple qualities that you'll want to pay attention to. It has the potential effect of causing the comet to turn more blue, which is interesting if you've studied the Hopi prophecy, where it says that Elenin, or there's going to be a blue star and then a red star. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But so it has the effect of being able to turn a comet more blue, but the more important effect is hydrogen cyanide can actually, in an electric world, can work as a giant capacitor. So if Elenin is comprised of hydrogen cyanide, it actually can store massive amounts of energy, of electricity. And so at certain alignments and for other reasons, it can release that energy at a moment's notice. So that's what I think is going on. When these alignments occur with the Sun is communicating with Elenin, and it's drawing that energy out of Elenin, and it's crossing the Earth, and it's causing earthquakes. That's what I think is happening. But if you were to listen to what NASA has said, they've said that Elenin is not even worth paying attention to, that it's actually a wimpy comet. But if you compare it to other comets that have made big news from NASA, this comet is coming between us and the Sun, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Whereas other comets they've told us to pay attention to, they're way out, they're beyond Mars. But hey, it's a big deal, pay attention. Yet this one they're trying to downplay, and I think it's because they know how what kind of effects it has on the Earth. That's my humble opinion. So if we now go to some future dates, today is August 26th. So I'm going to zoom in here. And now you see, as of today, Comet Elenin is 1.091 AUs from the Earth. We're going to fast forward now because I want to show you a date that's coming up. August 31st, Elenin will be 0.978 AU from the Earth. And this is the date that allegedly Elenin is supposed to be visible to the naked eye in the sky. So in a few days, start going outside and looking for Elenin. You should be able to see it soon. If Elenin is causing these earthquakes, it can't be this wimpy comet like NASA says. It's going to not only have to be larger in size than what they're speaking of, but it's also going to have to be able to carry that energy like what we said. So some have said that Elenin is larger than Jupiter. If this is true, then it should be visible very soon. We should see a massive object in the sky. But we'll see. The next date I want you to pay attention to is September 5th and 6th. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see everything. On this date, you see that Elenin, Mercury, and Mars are in alignment. And Elenin's pretty close to the Earth at this point. It's 0.855 AU away. So obviously it's closer to the Sun, closer to Earth than we are to the Sun. And then also, if you look the other way, Earth, the Sun, and Venus are aligned. So that's around September 5th and 6th. It's a watch date. There could be some earthquakes around that time period. I would keep your eye on it. The next date to watch is September 11th. That's because there's a couple things that happen here. If you're looking at this diagram, and I'll zoom in again, you're going to see that part of this line is dark blue, and then the other part is light blue. And what that line means is that, and I can actually change the angle here so you can see, what happens is there is a plane. If you cut the Earth in half, there's a plane, and the dark blue is below that plane, and the light blue is above that cut plane of the Earth. And so Elenin's approach is below the Earth, if you could think of altitude. And after September 11th, it's going to be above that plane. But September 11th is the day that it reaches what's called perigee, and that's where it's on an equal plane with the Earth. So that's very interesting. The other thing that's interesting is it's also the perihelion day. That means that its closest point, Elenin will be at its closest point with the Sun. And this is believed, if it is comprised of this hydrogen cyanide, this could cause a reaction in Elenin to make it very bright, kind of like a second sun. So pay attention for that day, September 11th, as that is a possibility. All right. Let's keep going. And here's what's most exciting to me. When you get to September 26th, here you have Comet Elenin and the Earth in a very close pattern. The distance is 0.395 AU. And you'll see another alignment. You'll see the Earth, Comet Elenin, and the Sun now in a straight line. And Elenin now is between the Earth and the Sun. If this is the size of Jupiter, you can expect it to block out the Sun. I've heard anything from about 70 to 72 hours, so about 3 days, you'll see the Earth, the Sun just blocked out from the Earth, causing an eclipse. And if we go look at a calendar, this is where. Let's look at where that puts us. So September 26th, 27th, 28th, and now we'll get to September 29th. This is very interesting timing to me as a Christian because I pay attention to the feasts of the Lord spoken of in Leviticus 23. These are 7 days out of each calendar year where God said, hey, celebrate these 7 feasts. Well, that feast in Hebrew is moed. That word is moed, and it actually means an appointment. So God essentially said, these are my 7 appointments that happen every year. And if you look at the appointment calendar, if you look at chadbad.org, it's a Jewish calendar, you can see September 11th here. If you go down to the 29th, this is the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And that is one of the 7 appointments given by God in Leviticus 23. So this just happens to be around that time period where the sun's going to be darkened by Comet Elenin, and it leads us right into Rosh Hashanah. And there are some amazing things in the constellations that day. So I would definitely watch that time period. If you go past this date, then we're going to come into October 17th. And this is where comet Elenin comes in closest proximity to the Earth ever. And it's going to be at 0.234 AU. And if we zoom out a little bit, you're going to see comet Elenin is now headed out. It's going to be picking up speed on this whole curve, and it's going to be heading back out. So this is definitely a day to watch because it's going to be very close. Going past that date now is going to be the next time to watch, which is November 2nd through about the 7th. So for about a week, the Earth is going to pass through comet Elenin's tail. And so I would definitely keep your eye on this time period, November 2nd through about the 7th. We're going to pass through its tail, and as comet Elenin had come through the asteroid belt, most researchers believe that it picked up at a tremendous amount of asteroids. So as we pass through its tail, it's definitely very reasonable to consider that we may be entering into an asteroid, a tail full of asteroids, and could definitely bombard the Earth. So very interesting. That's around November 2nd through about the 7th. So definitely things to consider. The last and final alignment of this whole comet Elenin thing, strangely enough, ends up being December 21st, 2012. So that whole time period I just showed you, also keep in mind that Earth now has passed in between the Sun and Elenin. So definitely a high frequency, there's a high probability of earthquakes coming in that time as well. And the distance is only going to be 0.373 AU. So here's basically what the schedule is for comet Elenin, and I would definitely keep your eye on it and research more because there's a lot of very good information out there about this. So if you compare that to the Japan earthquake, it's 10 times closer at that point than what happened in Japan. So I've even heard magnitudes of upwards of 12 to 15 on the Richter scale for that time period. So if you start to think about what the Bible says about what's coming, it's very interesting. (2012). It's going to go way out. Yeah. Yeah. That's the final alignment. Yep. There's more. There's a few more in between there, but that's when it's totally out. There's no more alignments. Okay, so. And I'm going to make all those individual videos available on our website too. So this whole teaching will be available, and all those individual videos will be on our website. So you can refresh. Okay, now here's something that's very interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the Swiss franc has had I can't remember how many. I think it's like 9 rounds of different currencies that they've laid out, and I think on round 6, they actually brought this currency out, and it's just unbelievable. So we're going to take a look at this. Okay, a pioneer Swiss mathematician. So this guy up here on the top left. A pioneer Swiss mathematician and physicist Leonhard Euler from 1770 carefully drew out the situation of the planets of comet Elenin on September 26, 2011 on the back of the 10 Swiss franc note, Switzerland's national currency. So the alignment that takes place on September 26th, where I talked about where the sun's going to be blacked out, that's actually depicted on their currency from a mathematician that lived in 1770. So, well, that's what we're kind of getting into. How much have we actually been, how much of a filter has been from the government to society? How long has the government known about this thing, and yet they're just kind of letting pieces out as they want? Because we're getting to a point now where they really can't hold things back anymore. Things are happening. And so this guy depicted this on their currency. This currency was, let me read on. He probably did not draw the image, but he discovered an asteroid later named Euler, which is supposed to be drawn on the Swiss banknote. Yet the path of Euler's asteroid doesn't seem to correspond with what is drawn on the 10 Swiss franc note. So he discovered a comet named Euler after his last name, and so what should have been depicted on the note is not the Euler comet. It's actually what we're seeing on this September 26th. This particular Swiss note is from the 6th series of Swiss banknotes, issued November 1979 and withdrawn in May of 2000. And if you compare the two names, you'll see the similarities in this guy's name versus this alleged astronomer from Russia who says, "Hey, I saw Elenin last year." Really, it just sounds so very suspicious. And I'll be honest, I'm going to give my personal flavor. I'm not buying it. It just is too coincidental. And then if you look on their banknotes also, and I haven't taught this as a Bible study here yet, but it's on our website. We have a video called The Days of Noah and the Return of the Nephilim. But if you look at Genesis chapter 6, it depicts a relationship between fallen angels and human women, where they actually procreated a half-breed of half angelic, half human, and that's exactly what took place in Genesis chapter 6. And that's depicted on their currency. I don't claim to understand everything that's depicted on this. What I really focused in on was, and let me go ahead. This is Leonhard Euler, so you can look up a little bit about him if you want to on Wikipedia. And it shows that, yeah, he was a mathematician. It's exactly what the claims are, that he lived in that time period of the 1700s, and he was very good at math. So, okay, so here's a better picture of the alignment. Here's from that software, but it's just inverted, so you can see it better. So it's that same deal we were just working, but now it's inverted so you can see better. And here's exactly the alignments, and everything lines up exactly where it needs to be. In a weird way, so it's just very strange. So you can look more into that and go, it creates a bigger timeline than what I'm hearing about December 10th of last year. Go ahead. There is we're looking at the time when it gets closest to the Earth. And that actually the closest point that Elenin gets to the Earth is October 17th. That's the closest day. But the alignments there's big days for multiple reasons. The November 2nd through the 7th is a huge time period because it picked up a bunch of debris through the asteroid belt, and we're going to pass right through that. So that's it's going to look like the stars are falling out of the heavens. Okay? Exactly. See, in September 26th, that 3-day alignment where it's us, the Earth, then you have Elenin in between us and the Sun. That's going to be very catastrophic.
And it appears that when the tank quake, the Earth is in the middle, and then the Sun, Elenin here, and then the other big quake, the chilly quake, the Earth is in the middle again, and the Sun and Elenin on each side. So as we get to that October time when the Earth is in the middle again for that week, as it's leaving, we're in the middle of the comet sun for a week.
Yeah, and well, going back to September 26th, this is when it's extremely close, and this is the first time that the comet Elenin passes between us and the Sun. So that's very significant. September 26th. Well, like I said, we have two different informations on that. So some people are saying if you'll get the official story from NASA, it's only 3 to 4 kilometers wide with a coma of 200,000 kilometers wide. Whereas there's others that are saying there's no way, the way this thing is acting, there's no way it's a comet and it's a brown dwarf star. That's what other people are saying. I'm not going to claim to say I know what it is. Okay, I'm not going to stand up here. I'm just going to say, hey, these are the dates things are happening. Every time it aligns, there's major earthquakes. it can't be the small comet from what I understand. There's no way it can be just a small, insignificant comet and create the damage that it's doing and tilting the axis of the Earth on the Chile earthquake and then tilting it again on the Japan earthquake. When has that ever happened? Never. Maybe. We're gonna continue to pry into this a little bit though. Okay, so if you've heard me teach in the past, I talk a little bit about the occult and how they are actually in control of Hollywood. And so they depict a lot of things in entertaining movies that are actually real events that are coming in the future. And if you look at the movie Deep Impact from 1998 and you realize the situation that we're in right now, it's very interesting. So check out some of these clips from Deep Impact.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
So for the past 8 months, the United States and Russia have been building the largest spaceship ever constructed. It's being built in orbit around the Earth. And we call it the Messiah. And we call it the Messiah. We call it the Messiah. We call it the Messiah. And right now, a team of American astronauts and one Russian are at Cape Canaveral in Florida. In 2 months, they will leave on the shuttle Atlantis to board the Messiah. Leave on the shuttle Atlantis to board the Messiah. Leave on the shuttle Atlantis to board the Messiah.
Do you have proof?
He thinks he was being so clever. He had a private phone line installed in his office. Nobody else could answer it. I picked it up once, said hello, and it's nobody home. It rings, he shuts the door. Why not hang a sign?
Do you have a name?
This is what I get for talking to the press. I'm selling my soul right now. I can feel it. I can feel it. I name a name and get someone into trouble.
So you do have a name?
Just her first name. Oh my God, I'm going to say it. Ellie.
Ellie? Nothing else?
I think the president knows about it too. Overheard the secretary talking to him about her. Isn't Washington sick?
People knew about the Manhattan Project, you know, and they kept it a secret.
That was just the creation of the atom bomb.
Tom Beck. I understand you've come into some information.
Ms. Lerner was just expressing her lack of enthusiasm for matters of national security, where journalistic competitiveness is at stake.
Mr. President, I'm not interested in using Ellie to further my career.
What do you know about Ellie?
I know you should have picked a better cover story than a sick wife.
See? What'd I tell you? We'd always thought the deadline for going public was the publication of the budget, since we've spent more money than we can hide. But the budget comes out in 2 weeks. I don't suppose I could convince you to sit on this for 2 weeks.
No such thing as 2 weeks in the news business.
And I can't appeal to your sense of what's in the nation's best interest.
Well, I always thought the truth was in the nation's best interest.
You want to hold it?
What if we go public in 48 hours? Now, that's doable, isn't it?
That would be very difficult, Mr. President.
Morton, if she knows, how long can it be before CNN or the Post breaks the story? Now, this was never going to be a secret as long as you wanted it to be. Give us 2 days, Mr. Turner.
So that's some of the stuff from Deep Impact, so you can get it on Netflix maybe and check it out if you want to. Very interesting. There's all sorts of similarities there. So it just rises, it's just knowing how much the occult is in Hollywood, I'm very suspicious. It's something I've spent a lot of time studying, and I'm telling you, they're littered with things in the occult where they're always telling things that are coming in the future by very powerful people who control the world. If you don't know that, that's exactly what we live in. You can look at, what was that movie? The Knowing with Nicolas Cage. And they show a headline, he's watching TV, and an oil rig catches on fire in the Gulf Coast. And that was before the Gulf Coast oil spill. There's all sorts of things going on. I don't want to open Pandora's box too much for you guys. This is the world that I know things to be. But this is the things that happen in the occult, and they celebrate these things. Part of their religion is it's part of the cabal, and their part of their religion says we warn the people, or we tell the people what we're going to do to them before time, knowing that they're helpless to stop it. And that's part of their religion. So you see that celebrated in Hollywood, just so you know. So if you want to talk Hollywood sometime, I'll tell you all sorts of movies to stay away from. Okay, so this guy is Dr. Brown. He came out, what year was, let's see, July 29th, 2005. He said he found a 10th planet. It says it's definitely bigger than Pluto. Dr. Brown of California Institute of Technology announced the discovery of this new planet in the outer solar system on July 29th, 2005. So there's more planets. If you haven't heard about a 10th planet, this is already news. So if you haven't heard about it, more research. Now there's a very interesting Hopi prophecy. Has anyone heard of this Hopi prophecy? This Hopi prophecy kind of reads like this. When the blue star Kachina makes its appearance in the heavens, the fifth world will emerge. This will be the day of purification. Also says in this prophecy, not far behind the twins will come the purifier, the red Kachina, who will bring forth the day of purification. On this day, the earth, her creatures, and all life as we know it will change forever. There will be messengers that will precede this comet of the purifier. They will leave messages to those on earth who remember the old ways. Okay, so why are we even reading a pagan prophecy? Now I want to just throw a little concept at you guys to think about. When Jesus was casting out the demons, I think it was by Capernaum. You remember that? And do you remember what the demons said? It was legion, right? There was a whole bunch of demons in this guy. He said, have you come to judge us before the appointed time? It's very important that we understand that we may be clueless on the time period that we live in. We may be thinking, oh, Jesus is coming back 1,000 years from now. But these demons knew precisely that it was not the appointed time for judgment. How did they know that? Because I believe that they know, they have access to information that you and I don't. They exist in a realm that's higher, in another heavenly realm or dimension where they can see more and their vantage point is more than us. Does that make sense? So if there was a comet that was heading towards the earth, when do you think they would know about that? Before us. At least the people who don't have the billion-dollar telescopes. So I want you to think about that from the spiritual realm. People have presented, oh, Satan has to have an Antichrist ready for every generation because he doesn't know. I would actually say that Satan probably has a really good idea. Really good idea. Because if you were going to get locked up for 1,000 years and get that ankle bracelet, would you want to know, okay, how soon is that coming? I'm pretty convinced that Satan has a really good idea about when that time period is. But you go, wait, Scott, no one knows the day of the hour. Not the angels in heaven, but the Father only. Right? That's Matthew 24:35. When I start to talk like this, I get that response the most from churchgoers. But I want you to understand the verse immediately before that. It says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will not pass away. And of that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels in heaven, but the Father only. So when you start to tell me that Satan doesn't know the time period where we go into that dark time of the tribulation, are you sure? Compare the verse immediately before that. Because the Word of God gives us so much detail about this time period that we're entering into, but it gives us no detail about heaven and earth passing away and when that is. So I would just do a little bit more Bible study before we bring those scriptures in. And I'm not saying that we can know the exact day that Jesus is going to come for us. I'm not saying that. I don't want to be the guy with the billboards, okay? Not trying to be that guy. But I want us to kind of put on our thinking caps and try and see things in the spiritual realm that we can't see with our viewpoint from earth, okay? Satan is the prince of the power of the air, right? Okay, so this Hopi prophecy, every false religion is totally satanic. Every single one of them. That's who the founder is. You don't have to worry about looking at Wikipedia to look for the founder. It's Satan. So, fallen angels and principalities are in charge of each of these false religions. And they can communicate. Hebrews 13:2 says, be careful to talk to strangers, for some have entertained angels unaware. Hebrews 13:2. So that can apply good and bad. Okay? So when Muhammad was in a cave and he saw an angel, it's just a fallen angel talking to him and telling him, hey, here's a new religion I want you to start. Well, same with what's going on. So a false religion's prophecy, even though the religion is false, doesn't necessarily mean that the prophecy should be ignored. Does that make sense? Okay. So Hopi prophecy. So we're looking for basically a bright blue star to kick things off, and then a red star to come after that is what they're essentially saying. And it'll be a catastrophic change for humanity. Okay, the Mayan calendar. You've heard about December 21st, 2012. Now, one of the lead guys on the whole Mayan calendar thing, he doesn't believe in December 21st, 2012. He thinks that that is a fictitious date. This guy has been researching it for 20 years. Dr. let's see, what is his name? Dr. Kalaman. And so he's world-renowned. You bring up the Mayan calendar, people know about this guy, okay? And so he actually says that out of these steps of the Mayans' awakening or an increased consciousness of humanity, the final step is the 9th universal wave. And he said that 9th universal wave started on March of this year and will end on October 28th. So some people are going, hey, it's December 21st, 2012. Well, it's believed that that was actually made up by the Illuminists to give people a false timeline, keep them clueless. So just so you know, if you're into the whole Mayan prophecy, you may want to look this up, because the Mayan calendar actually indeed ends on October 28th of this year. Very interesting. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go into looking for Nibiru. So here's what I'm going to lay out for you. Comet Elenin, I think, might be that blue Kachina star. It's got the qualities to it that it's got that hydrogen cyanide that can hold the energy. Okay. And so at that point where it comes in real close to the sun and reaches perihelion with the sun on September 6th, it's going to light up like a light bulb, and it's going to be a blue light bulb. Okay? That's a potential. I want you to understand, I'm not saying this is for sure what's going to happen, but from the research I've done, that's a potential of what could take place September 6th. It will look as bright as a second sun, and it will have a blue tinge. So that means that there is another object that's on its way, that's coming. Okay? A red object. Okay, so there's many blogs online, there's many people on YouTube saying that Nibiru is actually on its way. It's coming towards the Earth. So I just want to show you a few anomalies that I found on Google Sky and also Microsoft Worldwide Telescope. So if you come here to Google Earth, first of all, I want to show you a picture. This is a pretty famous picture that came out around January of 2008 from the telescope in the South Pole. So it was reported that Nibiru was first actually seen in 1983, and as a result of that, America, we built a telescope on the South Pole in 2006. So in January of 2008, this image allegedly came from the South Pole telescope, And so this is allegedly Nibiru. Here are some, possibly maybe some moons that are orbiting Nibiru. But what caught everyone's notice was there were some coordinates that were left on the picture on the bottom left-hand corner. And what you see here is 5 hours, 53 minutes, 27 seconds, -6, 10 degrees, 58. And so if you plug those coordinates into Google Sky, you'll see something very interesting. So I'll pull up Google. And on Google, if you go to the top toolbar, you'll see this button right here. It's going to take you from the Earth view to the sky view, if you have the most updated version. So we're pulling up Google Sky now. And I'm going to take those coordinates, which I have on this, this Post-it right here. I'm going to copy those. And then we're going to paste those here into Google Sky. And I'm going to hit search, and you're going to see something quite interesting. So here we go. It's going to take us in right by Orion's belt. And here we go. It takes us into this blacked out region on Google Sky. But if you zoom out a little bit, you're going to notice something, that blacked out region is actually just a cropped black rectangle that's blacking out whatever is behind it. So it's kind of odd as that picture claims to have the coordinates to Nibiru, and then you actually try and plug those coordinates into Google Sky, and that area has just been cropped out. It's a big black rectangle. And to further illustrate this, if you go to the bottom of the rectangle, you can zoom in. Maybe I went too far. If you zoom in here, you can see that it's cutting like star. This star right here is just cut right in half. And it has this little information tab right here. You can click on that. Pops up a window, but it gives you no information. Whereas other tabs here on Google Sky, you could click on it, it'd tell you, oh yeah, this is that star, and yada yada yada. But this area, for some reason, is completely blacked out by Google Sky. So it's interesting. Then if you follow the story of this whole deal on YouTube further, there are other people who actually looked on Microsoft's worldwide telescope, and they claim to have found Nibiru on here, possibly. So if we look at, starting at the sun, and you plug these coordinates in on Microsoft Worldwide Telescope, 06, first of all, be on the sky mode here in the bottom left-hand corner. Make sure you're on sky. Under distance, make sure you keep it at J2000. Under RA, 06, 08, 55. Under DEC, 22, 47, 21. Plug those in and hit go. It's going to take you away from the sun. It's going to take you now above Orion's belt. Some are claiming that Nibiru has moved, and now it's sitting above Orion's belt. Here's Orion down here, and it takes you into this image, which some are claiming is Nibiru, the brown dwarf star. So if indeed this is Nibiru, that's quite fascinating. That's interesting. We can actually pull up the coordinates from this through this window, and then you can actually plug those coordinates in to Google Sky. And I think you'll be amazed at what you see. So now going back to Google Sky, let's plug these coordinates in and see what we find. So I happen to have those copied and pasted right here. All right. So now we're going to copy and paste those here. And it's 6 hours, 9 minutes, 48 seconds, 22, 27 degrees, 54. And we're going to go from that cropped out black rectangle now to these new coordinates. And if indeed Nibiru has moved, it looks like it's jumped up to the north of Orion. And this is the image that appears. So some are now claiming that these are the same images. Not sure why there's a color difference. But these are, in fact, people are claiming the same image. And you have, you know, like these anomalies, these stars or whatever they are around it, or moons. And on this object, you have very similar pattern. So if this is Nibiru, those are how you can actually find it on both Google Sky and Microsoft Worldwide Telescope. Check it out. That is really cool, okay? But what I'm about to show you is just unbelievably amazing, okay? There is like a mighty climax to this lesson that is unbelievable, I'm telling you. Are you guys enjoying this? Is this okay? All right, okay, because this was like unbelievable amount of time. I had hundreds of, a couple hundred hours, I would say. Okay, so Nibiru on Google Sky. Now, here's something I learned just last night. After we filmed all this, Jay helped me film all this, and then I'm like, Lord, I need more, and he, one of the things about Nibiru that why they built all these telescopes and why they went up, why NASA went up and they repaired the Hubble telescope, and what they actually did is they gave it infrared capabilities, is because when it goes into infrared mode, you can see these Nibiru and stuff. You can track this stuff very easily. That's how you can see it. And so going into infrared, I don't have as cool of a video as what we just had, but now here's a couple looks at it in infrared in a different position as if it's been moving, okay? And now this is right by the constellation Leo, which is a lion, okay? All right, so check it out. That's where we were with that image of the red or the yellow Nibiru. And so now it's going to take us to another spot over here by Leo, which is the lion. And it's right by Mercury as well. And Nibiru is said to be the winged red planet. And so I'm very convinced that that's the best look at Nibiru we have. So it appears to be inbound. I don't know enough about the sky to say, okay, it's moving to the left on these programs. I don't know enough about, I'm not an astronomer, so I can't tell you, okay, see how it's tracking, and look, it just means that it's coming into view. Because I think it should be going towards the sun. It's going to be going towards the sun. So here's another spot on this area, and this is the constellation Virgo. In her leg, that whole region is totally blocked out now in infrared. Now, the updates are different, infrared versus normal sky mode, okay? So in infrared, we're having a whole new look at this whole thing. And these are cropped out areas. I believe this is probably Elenin that's being cropped out there. I don't have proof, I don't know for sure, but this is what I suspect. Okay? Now there's an email that's circulating. This is actually how the Lord showed this to me last night from a pastor friend. Emailed this to me last night, and I just happened to look at it at like 11 o'clock at night. And so this teaches you how to go on a normal browser into Google Sky to check out Nibiru. Okay? So check this out. I recorded it on my laptop. And this pastor friend of mine didn't even know I was teaching on this, so it's very interesting how it all worked. So, from out of state, just sent it to me. Yeah. I don't know if you can see very well, but you're basically going to google.com sky, and that's google.com sky. And then you're going to type in the search window, you're going to type in Mercury, the planet Mercury. Okay? That's step 2. And then step 3 says make sure you turn it on infrared mode and then watch what happens. So you guys can do this when you get home and you go, holy cow. There's the infrared button. You turn it on. And there's Mercury in the center. And over here, looks like it's Nibiru in infrared mode where you can totally see it. And that's right by Leo. So, okay. That's enough. All right. Job 9:9. Let's turn there real quick because what I want to show you right now is so incredibly amazing. It is just the coolest thing I have ever seen, and I knew I had to teach about this today. I knew I had to teach this. I knew God kept me up that night because there was something he wanted us to see. And so if you go to Job 9:9. Okay. Job 9:9. Job here gives credit to God. He says, He, God, is the maker of the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellations of the south. So here, Job is giving credit to God as the creator of the constellations. It's really important because when you start to get into this, you can get into astrology, and you don't want to ever get into astrology. That's evil. That's when they take these constellations, they try and predict the future for your destiny and my destiny and all that. That's complete wickedness. We're going to stay way clear of that. Okay? It's also important to then look at Job chapter 38 and verse 31. God now takes the credit. He says, Can you bind the beautiful Pleiades? Can you loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their season and lead the bear with its cubs? This is all in reference to the constellations, to the heavens, okay? So it's very important. They're there because they're signposts to us. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Genesis 1:14 says that God put the lights in the firmament of the heavens to be signs and signals of his moeds, is what appears in that text. Genesis 1:14, the word moed, the Hebrew word, that means appointments. It's the same word that is in Leviticus 23 when God has the Jews start celebrating his 7 moeds. And he says the sun, the moon, the stars are in the firmament of the heavens to be signposts, to be giant signals of my moeds. We should watch them. Okay. So, Psalms 19, verse 1, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. All right. If you have not seen this video, I would highly recommend you watch this. This is the most incredible video I've ever watched in getting me to reprogram the way I think about some passages in the Bible, in getting me to reprogram the way I think about the heavens and how important they are. So Star of Bethlehem, totally worth it. The author in this video sets forth being able to go into some programs and knowing for sure exactly which day Christ was born. And so he goes through and he shows you that indeed the constellation Virgo had a moon under her feet, and the Christ child was born on that day. So if you're thinking Revelation 12, that happened September 11th of 3 BC is what he says. And that happened to be Feast of Trumpets that year. Right on a moed, right on schedule. Okay? All right. So God stamps the heavens. It's very important that we understand this because we can miss so much of the story if we're not paying attention. Now I want to show you pretty much the grand finale of this whole thing. Okay? I want to show you the grand finale of what's coming. All right? This is so cool. Revelation chapter 12. Let's just read through it and then we're going to go through the last video. Revelation 12. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Verse 3. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. And his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she would be nourished for 1,260 days. Okay. We're going to roll into this video, and this is pretty much the grand finale, you guys. This is just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay? All right, so checking out Comet Elenin, I want you to be clued into what's happening from God's viewpoint. In Leviticus 23, he tells Moses to have the Jews start celebrating 7 feast days. And that word feast in Hebrew is moed. And actually what you see, the meaning of that word actually means appointment. So there are 7 appointments on the Jewish calendar that occur every year. And one of those appointments is called the Feast of Trumpets, or Yom Teruah. And if you look on chadbad.org, I'm going to show you, just so that you can see, that indeed we're in September of 2011 here on chadbad.org. And I'm going to scroll down, and indeed you're going to see that Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Teruah, is a 2-day feast that starts on September 29th and also on the 30th. Knowing that now, I want to show you something that is just unbelievably amazing. There's a free program on the internet called Stellarium. It's open source, and this is a software program. Get rid of that. This is a software program where you can actually pull up the constellations in the heavens and orbits and all sorts of things. So it's pretty cool. You can actually import certain asteroids or comets, and I put Comet Elenin in here. So I'm going to pull up Comet Elenin. There's a whole process to pull that up. Okay, so now it's tracking Comet Elenin. I'm going to go to the eastern sky, and now we're going to go to Feast of Trumpets this year, and I think you're going to be amazed at what we see. Okay, I'm going to bring up the constellations. I'm going to get rid of this atmosphere. All right. Okay, so here we go. This is the constellation Virgo. And let me just move her a little bit up. Okay. So here we see the constellation Virgo. This is September 27th. And if we go 1 day prior, we're going to go to the 26th. You're going to see that indeed Comet Elenin is blocking out the sun, and this is where the sun should be blocked out for about 3 days' time. That's exactly where we see it in position in the constellation of Virgo. Now here's what's interesting. If you read the book of Revelation, chapter 12, you're going to see that it says in verse 1, it says, "A great sign appeared in heaven." Most scholars have only looked at maybe a spiritual aspect of what this passage is saying, but here is an actual sign in heaven that seems to fulfill Revelation chapter 12 to the T on Feast of Trumpets this year. Check it out. "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth." So here we see exactly what this passage is depicting. On the 27th here, I'm going to go backwards in time. So here's the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. You see Elenin in front of the sun, like we had talked about. And now we're going to see Elenin now go up to her head. There's the 27th, and you're seeing the moon. Watch the moon. The moon is dropping down. The moon's been up above her head here. The moon now just dropped down to her shoulder on the 27th. And also pay attention to Venus. Venus is entering into Virgo's womb. And Saturn is in her womb as well. So Virgo here on the 27th enters into the womb of Virgo. And then the moon now on the 28th is down by her hand. But look what happens on Feast of Trumpets on the 29th. Here we go. The moon now is at her feet. Virgo's womb is full of Saturn and Venus. She's clothed in the sun, and Elenin now with its tail now is going to be cast this way into her head, and is going to look like a garland of stars in her head. The passage says that she has 12 stars in her head. So possible fulfillment of that, and is really a once-in-a-lifetime event, is that Elenin is in her head, and her tail is casting this image of 12 stars. But also beyond that, I have researched online that her head indeed has 12 stars inside of it. So if you zoom in on her head, you'll see some stars, and if you begin to count them, there is indeed 12 stars in her head. But like I said, I think that the fulfillment is actually Comet Elenin in her head at this time. All right, so looking at now Venus being in her womb, Venus is known as the morning star. And if we look at Revelation chapter 22, verse 16, Jesus refers to himself as the bright morning star. And so this woman is known to be Israel, and Christ being in her womb is being spoken of as being born. Well, here's the bright morning star, Venus, in the womb of Virgo as she gives birth to him. And then also you're going to notice that Saturn is also in her womb. Well, Saturn is known by the occultists as the dragon, and also is referred to as the Greek mythological person Kronos. So if we look at Kronos on Wikipedia, you can see that reading through Kronos, you can see that that one of the things that Kronos was worried about was that its child was going to actually become greater and overpower him. And so anytime a child was being born, he would devour them all as soon as they were born to preempt this prophecy from taking place. So Kronos was known as devouring his children, and that is exactly what we see here. I'm actually going to pull up now Virgo in the Starry Nights program, and this is where you see it a little bit better. You see Elenin's tail now in Virgo's head a little bit more, crowning her with a wreath of stars is what it'll appear like in the heavens. You see Venus and Saturn now in her womb, and she's clothed in the sun. And here's the moon at her feet. And obviously it's a very small slivered moon because it is Feast of Trumpets, which is the feast where that always starts on a new moon. So that appears to fulfill Revelation 12 to the T. And you see that Venus is right there next to Saturn. So Saturn is right there just waiting to destroy the child, just like Revelation 12 says. I'll read that one more time. And it says, and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. So going back now to Stellarium. And if you look now, you'll see something that I haven't really seen anyone else point out. It's not that big a deal, but Feast of Trumpets is a 2-day feast. So not only you see here September 29th is the moon under her feet, but then also the second day of the feast, September 30th. When I move that forward to September 30th, which here we are, we're at September 30th here. If I drop out the atmosphere here, or the ground, you'll actually see that the moon indeed is still there and under her feet. So the moon is under her feet for both of the 2 days of the Feast of Trumpets, September 29th and the 30th. Very amazing. I'll bring back up the ground. And then I want to point out that as we continue on, you're going to see before Feast of Trumpets that around the 27th and 28th, Elenin comes up around her head and appears like she's crying. Well, if you read verse 2, it says she was with child and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. And if you continue on past these dates of Feast of Trumpets, there's the 29th, there's the 30th. Keep your eye on Venus now in her womb. Venus now is going to exit the womb of Virgo. And of course the child is being born, just as the passage says. So there's the 5th and the 6th. So indeed, that's exactly what's taking place. And Kronos, or Saturn, the red dragon, as this passage says, is ready to devour her child, just like it says in verse 4 of Revelation 12. So there you have it, you guys. There's the major sign. This Feast of Trumpets 2011, September 29th and 30th, of a woman clothed in the sun. She has a child. She's pregnant with a child, and the moon is indeed under her feet. She's got a crown from comet Elenin. So as far as what does this mean, I think this means that we actually are entering into the time period that the Bible speaks of time of great trouble for the nation of Israel. I believe that the church is going home very soon. We know that as the rapture or the harpazo. I think that the Lord is going to pull his bride out of harm's way very soon. My question to you is, do you know Christ? Do you love him? Have you been redeemed by him? And are you ready to see him? All right, so that's the grand finale of this whole thing. The Lion of the tribe of Judah is coming, and he's roaring. And September 20th of this year, they're going to try and divide the nation of the city of Jerusalem. And that's going to be catastrophic for the world. It's going to plunge the world into World War III. The occult, their plan has been to create 3 world wars. And the 3rd World War would be in the Middle East and would go nuclear. This is part of their plan. The cult's #1 goal is to build a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount. That's their #1 goal, because they worship the great architect of the universe. And so they want to build that. That's their pinnacle. So it's going to happen. It looks like it's all, the stage is set. Yes, that's their #1 goal. That's what they want to do. So, and if you haven't ever heard that before, we can probably do a lesson on that whole deal. That's a whopper. I didn't know anything about this a few years ago. So, so know that not only is God at work, and the enemy's at work as well, and things just seem to be coming out ahead. And so we as Christians have the helmet of salvation. Christ is coming. He's promised he's coming. And so you need to lay a hold of that. I'm not scared at all, okay? I know all this stuff. I'm not scared, and you shouldn't be either. We know God. We're reconciled to God. Father, thank you so much for this time together, Lord. I thank you so much for giving us wisdom and understanding, Lord, that to understand your word and the times we live in just a tremendous way. Lord, I believe that we are at the very end of the end, that your coming is very near, and that signpost on Feast of Trumpets this year is exactly that. It's a signpost telling us exactly what's ahead for humanity. We don't necessarily know the start date, but we know that the signpost is giving the signal. So, Lord, I thank you for allowing us to be those in that passage of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 that say that we are awake. We are sober. We're not drunk as others. But Lord, I thank you for your coming, the promise, the hope of your coming. And Lord, I pray that we would be really obedient during this time, that we would work the harvest, Lord, because the Lion of the tribe of Judah is coming. He's roaring. He is coming very soon. And I thank you, Lord, for that promise. So may we work the harvest in your name of Yeshua. Amen.